So Chris, thank you so much for making time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
And you're attending in June our Inner Circle live event. So we've had a few events where we bring a group of world-leading private practice hearing care clinics together, most in the US, and now we're doing it in the UK for the first time. So we've got 50 of them crossing the pond, coming to our little island.
Well, we've got to let them all into the country first.
Absolutely.
Let's not get carried away. No, I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, so it should be good. And Phil and I we were going, okay, who would be the perfect guest? Who would be the person who could add the most value to this group? And was like, okay, let's just look at them, look at the situation. They are super stretched. They wear so many hats. They're dealing with the marketing on one hand, then they're running to see a patient, then they've got an HR issue there. They're very stretched. Many are on the brink of burnout. Like, we see it, we hear it, we see the tears, we see the hard days, the good days, everything in between. And then we're helping them through the marketing puzzle, which is Apple entering the space with hearing health features being launched in the AirPods, the big Goliaths of the industry, Costco getting more aggressive with this boomer trend that's going on. And we're encouraging them at personal brands is the way they need to go to be iconically known in their community when hearing health, hearing loss, and hearing aids comes up in conversation. So we were like, okay, who is the individual that would add the most value?
They weren't available. You came to me instead.
Yeah, kind of. Daniel Priestley. So Phil put your name forward. We just thought, well, this is interesting. We've sent Virtual Freedom and Youpreneur to all of our members, and they're currently reading your books.
Very cool.
And Long Haul Leader is as fast as we can get our hands on it. It's going to be in their hands also.
Yep.
So they're all excited to meet you, but hardly any of them know who you are. So today's job is, okay, hello, Chris Ducker.
Open the kimono a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I could come up with a really wise, smart opening question, but really it's like, give us a bit of context on who you are and how you've ended up on this journey with these 3 books that very much align towards the exact puzzles that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, so I started my first business in 2004 over in the Philippines. I'd been over there on a contract with an international bank, helping them with their kind of sales and marketing teams, and ended up setting up my own call center facility with my wife. And so after sort of about 3 or 4 years or so, we ended up kind of venturing out into more along the lines of kind of like the virtual assistant space and remote team building and things like that, while still having the call center still rocking and rolling. And it was about 2010 that I remember I got the first kind of invite to do a keynote over in the US on working with virtual assistants. And I'd never spoken on the subject publicly before. So I instantly kind of thought, what the hell am I going to talk about? But then I realized I've been doing this for sort of 6-7 years already in the dark. No one knows about it. Let's try. And so that's exactly what happened. And it was one of those events where there's like a lot of speakers speaking all at the same time. It wasn't just like a main stage event. There was a lot of congruent sessions going on. And I ranked 1 out of about 19 sessions. And I was like, holy moly, I might be on to something here. This could be really good. And so that kind of began my content creation and my personal brand journey.
Gotcha.
Started blogging. We're saying that word in 2025. It's like, oh my God, blogs are still a thing. They are still a thing, actually. We won't go down the rabbit hole now, but I started blogging because that was kind of like what we're doing right now, Diary of the CEO, all the big kind of like video podcasts are the thing now. But in 2010, blogging was the thing.
Oh, man, I used to be able to write a blog, put an affiliate link on it, and
make money like that overnight, right? It was the golden age of online business, right? And so I started blogging 3 times a week. April 2010, I started my first podcast. So that means I've been podcasting 15 years. Somebody called me the other day a podcasting veteran, which I thought was hilarious, right? But 15 years actually can kind of earn you those stripes. And I've been podcasting ever since. Podcasting for me has been one of the most important marketing, not necessarily strategies, but activities that I've done. Both hosting my own show and being a guest on other people's shows has been probably, it's brought more money my way, more opportunities my way, more friends my way, more networking my way, more speaking gigs my way than any other activity that I've done. So if you are somebody that likes the idea of getting behind a microphone, and my father used to say, you've got the perfect face for radio kind of thing, right? Like, so you don't have to be on camera to be a podcaster, but if you like the idea of, and you feel like you've got something to share from a podcasting perspective, start podcasting, because I just can't see it hurting you. You're only going to help you, right? So that's kind of what happened. And then 2014, Virtual Freedom came out. 11 years now with that book. I think it's in like 8 different languages. We've sold about 250,000 copies of that book, I think, at this point, or something like that. And that's really kind of like where my journey of talking about VAs and remote team building kind of came to an end to a certain degree, because what happened with the success of that book and me getting on stage a lot in the United States, people were like, well, I want to build a personal brand like Chris does. Like, how does Chris build a personal brand? So I started talking about personal branding and building like an expert business and building a business around your expertise and the people that you want to serve, right? And that's where Rise of the Youpreneur came about in 2018. And so everything I've done leading up to this next book, The Long Haul Leader, which comes out in September this year, I'm going to try and get you guys copies early.
Thank you.
But everything I've done has always been done kind of like the book has come out, but those 5, 6, 7 years before is what I've done to write that book, right? So the first book, the second book, and now with The Long Haul Leader, which talks, it handles the subject of burnout and the opportunity that is being missed by a lot of entrepreneurs in today's world because of hustle culture, determining that we should be working like 60, 70, 80 hours a week and, you know, lunches for wimps, Gordon Gekko and all that kind of stuff, right? But the fact is that as the entrepreneur, if we're not looking after ourselves, then we can't take care of our business. We can't take care of our clients. We can't do anything, right? So I hope that what that third book does is allows entrepreneurs, and not just business owners actually, but leaders in general, CEOs, CFOs, COOs, C-suite management, you know, supervisory roles even, right? Like I want leaders, period, to say, you know what? It's okay for me to take a day. It's okay for me to go to bed early. It's okay for me to not check my emails at 10:30 at night, right? And a whole lot more as well. So that's the journey, man. That's kind of where we're at.
Oh, there's so much to unpack. And I must say on Long Haul Leader, obviously not read it, but heard about it and heard the context of it, and I exhaled when I heard that. Permission not to run myself into the ground for the pursuit of success.
Yeah.
So super.
Yeah, somebody actually called it. I sent about 60 or 70 kind of digital copies out to like early readers at the beginning of this year, and one of the best pieces of feedback I had come back. They said it felt like a $25 permission slip, which I thought that was great.
Yeah,
that was a good piece of feedback. Yeah.
So to take you back, we're going 2010, 2014, that kind of space, right? And we're talking using resource at external of your internal walls, essentially, which is something that we see in our industry that not many people do. They will hire, but it's always seen hire somebody to sit in the office to help, and then resource becomes tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
When it comes to finding resource external, what are some of the things that stop people from doing that from your experience, and what are the things they could do better with that? Because,
well, I think the big thing is that everybody thinks it's like sort of outsourcing in general is something that's happened just in the last 20 years or so. But we've been outsourcing for a lot longer than that. Like even here in the UK, we've been doing it. We've been outsourcing our accounting, for example. We've been outsourcing our IT management, right? Like remember when, well, you look way too young to remember when, but when the year 2000 come around, everybody was freaking out about their computer clocks blowing up their machines and all that sort of stuff. That IT, if you were an IT company in 1999, you were making bank beyond recognition because everybody was so fearful of their computer systems crashing and losing all their accounts and their customer info and all the rest of it, right? So we've been outsourcing a long time, a lot longer than 18, 19, 20 years. But I think one of the really big stumbling blocks for a lot of people, particularly small business owners, are doing sort of, you know, anything from kind of like $500,000 up to like 2.5, 3 million a year. They might have a little team in place. They probably do if they're doing more towards that sort of higher ceiling. But the fact of the matter is that we got to get out of our own way, is what I'm saying. Every entrepreneur, every business owner thinks that they can do pretty much everything that needs to be done day to day better than anyone else. And that's not true. I know that for a fact because I was one of those people. I'm a recovering micromanager myself, right? So when we step away and we say, okay, there's not enough hours in the day. If only there was 8 days a week and all this kind of stuff, that's detrimental to our growth and our scalability as a business owner as well. So in 2010, the big turning point for me was I burnt out for the first time. I burnt out twice. I burnt out for the first time. And it actually ended up with me having to have lower back surgery, like L5-S1 spinal fusion.
Jeez.
And because I was sat in a chair for 16 hours a day for 3 years in a row, growing my business, crushing the bottom of my spine. Right? And so...
You were crushing it quite literally.
Yeah, quite literally, right. Yeah, and this cheap bloody chair that had been imported from China or somewhere, right? Just ruining my back. And so what happened was we made a list. My wife and I, we went away as I was recovering from that operation. And we made a list of kind of like... We were in a private resort in the Philippines where we lived. We had a little bit of a staycation. And you know, like when you're in a hotel, like there's always a little pad next to the phone in the room, or there's always napkins at the bar and all that kind of stuff. So as we were spending time, we did 3 nights at this place. If something came into our heads or something came up in conversation at dinner or something, we had one of those pads and we were just writing notes down. Both of us were writing notes down. And when we got back to our house, when we returned home, we kind of started putting these notes into separate piles. And we realized that these piles actually fit really well. The tasks were grouping quite well together. And this was the turning point, man. This was kind of like what we were doing. We were creating the roadmap for me to be ultimately replacing myself in the day-to-day of the business. And we realized I was the recruiting officer. I was the sales trainer. I was the operations manager. I was doing bloody everything. Yeah. I remember one day very clearly, I walked into our server room at the call center and I was kind of looking around as if I knew what was going on. There's flashing lights everywhere. And I was like, I have no idea why I walked into this ridiculously air-conditioned room right now. Why am I in here? I've got no right being here. I've got no idea what that yellow cable does or anything. I need to hire an IT director. Right. And so those 3 lists or those 3 piles of notes turned into my now 3 lists to freedom, which is the exercise I've done, I don't know, with probably close to 500,000 people at this point now on stage and on calls and things like that. And so it was a list of like what I didn't like doing, what I couldn't do very well. I might not hate doing it, but I kind of would struggle through doing it. And then the third one was the really big turning point for me. And that was a list of all the things I felt that as the owner, I shouldn't be doing. Like I might like doing it, might be kind of good at it, but is it the best use of my time, right? And so that kind of became the, and your clients will clearly see it's right at the beginning of the book, the 3 lists to freedom, and it comes up over and over and over again. That was kind of where it all started. So I think fear is a big, big one. Letting go, letting someone else do something that you feel you're very good at. You might be good at it, but should you be doing it as well is a big one. Fear is always the big, big one, just letting go.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is there anything... So if I'm in the shoes now of somebody who's really struggling to let go, and I can do the exercise and know I shouldn't be doing these things, but I'm still crippled by that fear, is there anything that I should think differently? How should I approach that?
The fact is, look, there's only so many hours in each day, right?
Yep.
And so if you're consistently switch tasking, multitasking, we won't go down this rabbit hole, but I think multitasking is a myth. I think it's something that some really cool professor somewhere at some university kind of came up with one day or something. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think somebody really smart came up with the term and the media kind of jumped on it. Oh, you've been multitasking and all this kind of stuff. For me, multitasking is a myth. We switch task. And when you switch task, what you're doing is you're telling the brain to stop doing this one really important piece of work to do this relatively minuscule, unimportant piece of work in the moment right now. And that switch tasking is going to ruin your productivity as a business owner day after day after day. Absolutely, like it'll ruin it. And so our job is to ultimately try and almost step out of our body to a certain degree to see what life would be like if we weren't dealing with all the little fires that pop up. We just ran a client retreat of our own here, right, over the last 3 days. And there was one particular client who had left his business. He was in the tech space, left his business for the 3 days for the first time in 6 years.
Wow.
And I had a conversation with him yesterday in front of the whole group. And I said, so my question to you is, how do you feel now? He said, well, the first day I was absolutely freaking out. I was like, is the building going to still be there when I get back kind of thing? But actually now, and I said, well, how many fires have you had to put out in the last 3 days? And he said to me, well, none that I know of. And that comment alone was enough for him to realize, actually, there probably were some fires, because we're in the tech space, things move so quickly. Probably were some fires, but the team put them out. I didn't know about the fires. That's good. I can do this again now. And I think that's kind of the realization, is to understand that your business is not going to grow at the rate that it probably should be growing at if you're stuck in the weeds. day by day, you know?
Makes a huge amount of sense. And obviously you had the group in the Philippines. Have you learned anything about if I'm based in the US now and I'm looking to find resource to outsource to, is there any recommendation on where to go, right? Because obviously there's onlinejobs.ph or there may be Upwork, but from the...
I have a really good recommendation for you. I've got the only recommendation that you should consider, and that is because we had two businesses over there. We had the Live to Sell group, which was our large call center, which we exited from in 2023. And then in November last year, we exited from our second business over there, Virtual Staff Finder. So Virtual Staff Finder was a kind of a bespoke recruitment hub for busy entrepreneur and experienced VA in the Philippines, and we would bridge that gap. Kind of Match.com kind of thing, right? Like that. And we ran for 14 years. And then last year we were acquired by another company that was doing that plus a bag of chips. So they were actually, yes, you can hire your VA direct. Your VA will work with you directly. They'll be your employee, but we can house them in our world-class facility with backup power generators and ISPs and management on point, and cool little Google slides and things like that in their offices, right? So WorkPod is the name of the company, WRKPOD.com/Chris. If any of your members or your clients are interested in it,
absolutely,
go to that URL and they'll, because it's /Chris, they'll get like a little star, genuinely like a little star on their CRM, and it's kind of a VIP kind of icon, because I'm still involved with the business. So they acquired Virtual Staff Finder, but I'm actually their chief evangelist now. And I kind of speak on how great they are, and because they're amazing. You know, they're about to broach 1,000 employees in 2.5 years.
Wow.
They've grown very quickly. And the plan is to get to 10,000, 5,000 Filipinos and 10 million in revenue on an annual basis. So they're well and truly on their way over there. Great company, really good company.
Do you think that's going to be the hub of the world for virtual assistants, or is it already the hub of the
It's interesting, when the 4-hour work week came out in 08, 09, something like that, Tim Ferriss talked about, kind of outsourcing life, I think was a chapter.
That was the first time that it kind of...
and everyone, but he talked very specifically about India and working with virtual assistants in India. But over the last kind of 10, 15 years or so, the Philippines has absolutely taken that crown away from India. And I think the big issues are, first and foremost, English. Filipinos speak incredibly good Americanized English, right? So they're educated in English from literally elementary stage right the way up to university or college stage. All their TV shows are in English, except maybe the local news and a few silly little soap operas and things like that. If you go to like a big cinemaplex in the Philippines, anywhere in the Philippines for that matter, let's say they've got 10 screens, 8 of them are going to be Hollywood blockbusters, and 2 of them are going to be local kind of silly little action movies or love romance movies or something like that, right? So I feel like that's been a big part of it. But also the culture of the Filipino is very important to understand. They're very, very hardworking. They're extremely family focused and orientated as well. And the majority of the Filipino VAs that you'll end up working with or coming across, they're the breadwinner for their whole family. And I'm not talking about their spouse and their children. I'm talking about their spouse, their children, their parents and their grandparents, and maybe even cousins. So it's a very, very, very serious job for a Filipino to get a great paying, VA type job. They're not leaving. They're not quitting on you. Not anytime. You have to do something real bad to get them to quit on you, And they want to grow their careers, and they want to genuinely do a great job at what they do for their bosses fundamentally. So, and I've seen it. I've probably hired well over 10,000 Filipinos in my career. And when we exited from the call center, we have 450 people working for us. So I know how great they are over there, and that's why they're winning that kind of battle, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. We've had a bunch in our business, and we still got them. Like, we've never had an issue. Like,
the other really, really big point to point out here as well is that because of the time zone difference between the Philippines and the United States, when you're working, they're sleeping, and when they're sleeping, you're working. So you know the old adage of like, oh, if only I could, work while I sleep, or like be productive while I sleep. Well, you can just hire a Filipino VA kind of thing, right? And that's a huge one as well. That's a big win for that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, let's move to this personal brand piece, because this has become I'd say it's grown in popularity, and I think it's going to go through another wave right now, which must be nice for you writing a book back then, that its popularity and even its place in the world is growing more and more as trust becomes so key. But if we break this down, the biggest thing that I see, especially when I speak to our members about this, is firstly, there's a stigma that personal brands are the people who've got to hold their cell phone up in the air constantly and take videos of themselves.
Yeah.
Or personal brand are people who built some audience on TikTok that they then try to monetize. Could you give me some examples of people who have real businesses, ideally in healthcare settings or professional services, that have been able to build a personal brand to leverage? Because we don't see many examples. All our examples are terrible.
It's the personal brand world today has changed, and it's continuing to change at an alarming rate, quite frankly, because of social media. So it's never been easier to build a personal brand around your expertise, right, as it is today. But the problem with that is the entry barrier is so low that you've got every Tom, Dick, and Harry coming out of the woodwork. Like in the pandemic, for example, there was more business coaches born in 2020 and 2021 than probably in the last 2 decades put together, right? Everybody sat at home, I've got 15 years in the financial game, or I've got 10 years as a nutritionist. I'm going to build my own personal brand and be a coach kind of thing, right? And while that was good, it was also bad, because obviously there were so many options, but nobody knew where to turn. But I think like with the healthcare sector particularly, I think the really, really big focus that anybody in the healthcare sector should have when it comes to utilizing their personal brand is not to think about it like a personal brand. It's about a personality. And I think that's the big difference, because people want to do business with other people before they want to do business with brands, for example. I'm a big believer of that. Like, I just believe that it's easier to get a yes in a sales conversation, and that's Phil's job. I'm not going to go in that. I'm not going to step foot in that little river there. But I feel like it's a lot easier to get a yes from a sales perspective when you've put personality into that nurturing of that relationship. You've handled the objections in the right way. You've made somebody feel comfortable. You've built enough rapport and trust with someone. That's personality. That's personal right there. That's personal. Whereas if you try and sell just because you are Coca-Cola, or just because you are, Emirates or whatever, I think there's a disconnect there for the average Joe out there, right? Like, I'm a big believer of that. So I think the most important thing is not to worry too much about building a personal brand. It's more about just being your true, authentic self and leaning into the things that really make you unique. That's the big thing, because we've all got very different stories. We've got very different upbringings, very different journeys that we've been on to get to where we are as business owners. And healthcare, whatever, it doesn't matter what the niche is, just be you. Like, be you all the time. And what happens is something very special. And I'm very passionate about this. I call it marketing like a magnet. Because like a magnet repels and attracts at the exact same time. When you are you all the time, the exact same thing happens. So you will attract the absolute perfect clients in your direction to work with you, to buy your products, to, buy your memberships, to, be at your events, and so on and so on. Whereas at the exact same time, if you're not that person's cup of tea, they're off.
Yep.
They'll go somewhere else, right? They'll go somewhere else. So I think it's not really about building a personal brand. It's just about being you and just utilizing your personality in the right way. And yes, some people will get their phones out all the time and talk on TikTok and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. But it can also just be about showing up in someone's inbox on a consistent basis with stories and value and expertise, and just showing them that you actually care enough to take time to write that 600 words on Monday morning, to email it to them. It doesn't have to be a sales conversation starter. It just needs to be a value giver. And that's what I'm all about. If you give enough value, it's like making deposits on a bank. The more money you deposit into a bank when you need it, the more money you'll have to withdraw, right? So just think about making lots and lots of great little deposits.
Gotcha. And where do you think this is going to go, this personal branding piece? Because if we look at AI right now, and it's becoming a little dehumanized in terms of the way we make decisions when we look at options. Even Google's AI overviews mean now that you get the answer without being able to actually delve into any form of personality. Do you think the need to personal brand as a local independent business is going to become a necessity rather than a nice to have? Or do you think it's always going to have a split in the market?
I think it's always going to have a split in the market because you do have to put some work into it. It doesn't happen naturally. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to write an email every week and it's just going to work, right? So I think there always will be some sort of split. I do believe, though, that the corporations anywhere on the planet that do end up with a personal brand culture within their businesses, they will be the ones that win in the long run, particularly because of AI. Okay. Because again, people want to do business with other people, not with AI, not with robots, not with generated text or videos or audio, for example. And so I think it'll always be a bit of a split because there are always people out there that are lazy. But I think corporations are probably going to become more and more open to the idea of particularly their management, their senior management, sharing their views and opinions on social media, for example, or starting a LinkedIn newsletter or writing an email newsletter to, whoever might want to subscribe to it on a weekly basis. I think it will continue to grow, but just like anything else, the real players will stick around. They'll be very, very consistent. They'll provide value and show up on a very consistent basis, and they will be the ones that win. Those that come and go and try it for a little while, don't see anything, so I can't be bothered with that anymore. They're the ones that are going to lose.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you think what's happened with Mark Zuckerberg's been intentional? He's gone from the geeky guy who didn't look very trustworthy in the eyes to he's on a surfboard and he's at the UFC with a cool haircut and a trendy outfit on.
Either it's intentional or he's having some sort of pre-midlife crisis, one or the other. I don't know. I mean, he's changed a lot though.
Yeah.
He's changed a lot.
Yeah, the before and after pictures.
I don't do politics, but now the whole kind of Trump thing and the Musk thing and all the rest of it, it's interesting times. Put it that way. Yeah, it's interesting times. But I don't know whether it's intentional or not. I think, also, like, to be real, like, he's built an amazing business. You can't fault him in any way. Maybe a little questionable in some ways every now and then when he's done it. But he's built an incredible legacy and business behind him, right? And I don't take anything away from anyone that does that. However, he started it when he was like a kid, basically, right? So if he's come out of his shell now as an adult, as a dad, as a husband, and as a leader, and he wants to go surfing and grow his hair out, let the dude do it. You know what I'm saying? Let him do it. I wish I could do it, quite frankly,
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've seen it more, right? Like Musk felt like the first who went from being a brand to like, you now associate him with the brand. And this is one of the positives that we see.
Branson as well. Branson.
Yes, absolutely.
For me, when I think about like true blue personal brand entrepreneurs, Richard Branson is definitely the top of the list for me because when you think of any Virgin company, whether he's actually involved with it or not, you think about Sir Richard Branson, don't you?
It's so true. Yeah. From Virgin Cola through to everything, right?
Yeah. Even the failures.
Yeah.
What was he thinking? Cola in the American market. What was he thinking?
But how do we deal with the one conundrum that I hear over and over again, which is I'll take one of the members that we work with. They own a practice. They have 7 other audiologists, hearing care professionals in their practice. They're scared of being the face because they think every patient will want them rather than the team. How do we deal with that conundrum?
Well, I mean, I think that like I have a client right now who's a chiropractor and he's in a similar situation where he's grown his practice, very successful practice. And he's now to the point where he wants to kind of like step away from the day to day. And obviously he's got 7,000, 8,000 clients on his roster, right? So what does he do? Well, the way that he's done it, he's ultimately starting to splinter off some of his patients to 2 other chiropractors that have joined the practice. He's now gone from working 5 days a week and being in the clinic and actually being visible to everybody around, not just patients, but also team members, to 3 days a week. And so he's kind of doing what he can do to kind of remove himself from people's eye line as much as possible so he can step away and working on the business rather than being trapped working in the business day to day. So I think that needs to be an intentional internal conversation you've got to have with yourself as well. And I think a lot of people, particularly when there are in the health game, like when when people are relying upon you to actually feel good or to, get through, their day, in worst case scenario,
Yep.
you have a sense of duty, or you should have a sense of duty to that kind of person, right? So I can understand that there's that kind of concern and that could potentially hold people back. But likewise, if I can be a little selfish for a minute, you've only got one life. Let's just get real here for a second. You have one life. So you better enjoy what you're doing for a living, because you spend about 70% of most of your adult life at work, right? So you better enjoy what you're doing. You better enjoy the people you work with and what you do with them. But more importantly, like, it's okay to be a little bit selfish every now and then. It's okay to say, I don't want to be seen like this anymore. I need to step away from this, or I don't want to work as many hours as I do. I need to hire somebody else to come in and do it with me. Sure, you might lose a few patients here and there, but you'll gain new ones as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you think if they sit as working on the business to be the personal brand that gives the opinions, puts their face out, but splinters the work to the team, that's not going to be an issue with patients thinking the person I see on the internet. I don't think so. Person.
If anything else, particularly with your more established patients, they're going to be proud to see you do that. I believe that wholeheartedly.
And let's move on to long haul leader then, because you kind of touched upon it then, right? One life, we work a lot. And as entrepreneurs, we work far more hours than we probably like to admit.
Yep.
And that has its risk to it. And you mentioned burnout before. Like, what has took you on the journey from the rise of Youpreneur and everything you've done there to now seeing this as like the next project and the book you've been working on for a period of time?
Yeah. So in 2018, me and the family moved back from the Philippines to the UK here. And I didn't realize it at the time. We were hosting a very large event, 500 people in London every year. So we moved in September, and the run up to that was, hey, let's buy a house in England. Let's complicate that by buying a 300-year-old house that's grade 2 listed, and then decide to renovate it. That was fun. By the way, I will never do that again, ever in my life, right? So let's do that. Let's get all the visas sorted for my wife, because she's Filipino, not English. Let's deal with all the contractors and the architects and all that good stuff, and then carry on putting our event and hosting other online events and looking after hundreds of clients, et cetera, et cetera. Let's do all of that all at the same time. That sounds like a really good idea, Chris. And then let's work our way through the first half of the pandemic, because opportunity was knocking. Everybody was flipping to online. Everybody was pivoting to learning online. We're an education company, so we pivoted as well. And that meant that we weren't geographically constricted in terms of who we could bring on board as clients, because we were hosting events here in the UK. Well, let's bring all the people on, no matter where they're from in the world. They can all tune in live, right? I worked myself into that second burnout, and it was actually really, really bad. You think back surgery was bad? Easy, recovered in 6 weeks, no problems at all. This was a whole different ballgame. This led me to go on antidepressant medication. It led me to hire a naturopathic doctor to test for everything you can imagine. I found out loads of stuff about me that was all wrong. But the really, really bad part was my adrenal glands were completely and utterly shot. They had flatlined. And I was on the border of potentially having that develop into Addison's disease. So I go on this, yeah, right?
Right.
I saw that in your face.
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah.
Huh, all right. So I've been on a mission to bounce back from that burnout. And that's everything from, quitting booze, quitting caffeine, quitting, staying up late working, all that kind of stuff. Don't work Fridays. Don't work any more, actually, than probably about 5 or 6 hours a day, Monday through to Thursday. Spend more time in my bonsai garden. I'm a bonsai practitioner. Spend more time painting. I'm a watercolor artist in my spare time as well. And spend more time just like out in nature, in genuine, like walking around forest and all that kind of stuff, right? Cold plunges, red light therapy, saunas, you name it, massive biohacking. And I'm happy to say I'm well and truly on the road to recovery. But this burnout taught me so much from a business perspective as well, because I realized I had to step way back. And when I stepped way back, it kind of did put the business off kilter a little bit. And we needed to kind of do what we needed to do to get through that period, right? And what happened, I realized, was actually, if I'd have avoided that burnout, if I'd have focused on me way more, first and foremost, as well as focused on the work I was doing and spending time away from work stuff and away from family, even like for me, like my own hobbies. And if I'd have spent more time with my friends and hanging out and, you know, having that community, I probably would have avoided that burnout completely. And that's where the Long Haul Leader was born. So those 4 things right there ended up becoming the Long Haul Leader Life OS, or operating system. And it's personal mastery, love and relationships, impactful work, and hobbies and pastimes. And I'm a big believer that a true leader needs all of those things in order to be at their very best.
Gotcha. So if you scaled back your career 15, 20 years back to 2005,
2004 we started.
2004.
2018 we really started putting our foot down. 2008 rather, we put our foot down. Probably.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So if you scale back to 2008 with this, what you know now, how do you think it would have impacted career and where we're at today? And the reason I ask this very selfishly is...
Oh, please be as selfish as you want.
I'm at a stage in my career where I feel like I'm pushing hard. Like the opportunity is rife, and I'm running myself hard at times.
Yep.
So like even some of your comments, and I'm like, what was the first sign of that? That sounds like it's a path.
First and foremost, I believed I would have been a lot happier. I didn't necessarily dislike what I was doing, and I sure as hell loved making all that money. But there were way too many times when I was just like, this is some BS. Like there's got to be an easier way. I'm not into this anymore. I think it's hard also. The entrepreneurial spirit is one full of energy, and you want to push forward and you want to try new things and you want to go in different verticals and sell different stuff to different people and all these kind of things. And I was like that. But I think if I'd have had a little bit more balance, and I talk a lot now about building a business, particularly for entrepreneurs, with balance, not burnout. If I'd have had more balance all those years back then, I think first and foremost, I would have been very much happier doing what I was doing. I also know for a fact I would have worked a lot less. I would have enjoyed myself a lot more, hence the happiness thing. And I'm pretty sure that I would have made a lot more money because I would have gotten out of my own way a lot earlier. I would have delegated a lot more a lot sooner, and that would have created more opportunity, no doubt. Yeah.
Gotcha. And this all kind of comes together so beautifully because I look at some of the puzzles that the practices.
I'd like to say it was planned like that. But
yeah, I know. But like, I look at the puzzles that some of the practices we work with now, and they're working all the hours that is sent to them. They're pushing really, really hard. I think many are on the brink of burnout, but the fear is like they love the idea of doing less, but they feel that is everything will come tumbling down very quickly because they've got the finger in the dam holding everything together, and as soon as they take it out, the dam's going to flood.
And that's where team becomes like really one of the most important things. You know, the fact is you won't be able to step away without the cards coming tumbling down unless you've got somewhere to make sure that the cards don't come tumbling down, right? Like the right hand, you know, you can call it the what's the word that it gets? Oh, the integrator. Such a cool word.
Yeah,
the integrator. It's the right hand, right? Is what it is. It's that I believe is the single most important hire you will ever make in your career as a business owner. There's a great book by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy called Who, Not How. It's not how do we fix this problem? It's who do we hire to fix this problem, right? Every entrepreneur should buy that book, by the way. It's a great book. And so, I think the first step is understanding that nothing will change unless you make changes. And if that means that some of the cards do topple down a little bit, so be it, right? You're going to have to pick yourself up and build up the house of cards again, quite frankly. But for me, I know this for sure now, and sometimes it's really hard when you're stuck sort of in that quicksand and you're trying to go and chase down every opportunity, and you go 2 steps forward and then 1 step back way too often. What I do know though is that nothing good is going to happen by you trying to achieve everything all at once. And I'm all about trying to engage with people and inspire them now to become sustainable leaders and be around for the long haul. It's not about a sprint, it's about a marathon. if you want to be really, really successful in business, you're not going to be really successful in business in 5 years. You're going to be really successful in business in 25 years. So with that in mind, what can you change today in order that you're still around 25 years from now is the questions you should be asking.
Gotcha. And with that in mind, what does the next 25 years look like for you? Because I did my research. You're, 52? Just turned 52?
Oh, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Thanks for that reminder.
You're welcome.
So what are you, like 23 or something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bloody baby face sitting opposite me here. It's like Phil, though. Phil looks like he's only about 12 most times when I see him.
Yeah.
I don't know what his skin regimen is, but I'm all in.
Yeah, don't get close up to him. It all reveals itself. But like the next decade now with this long haul leader, like you don't work Fridays, the passions that you have, is this the rest of your career as you
I think it is.
This level?
I think it is, yeah. It's interesting. When I wrote Rise of the Youpreneur, I thought that, number one, I thought genuinely that was going to be my final book. I also, and I remember explicitly on a number of different podcast interviews saying, this is my next 10 years. Helping people monetize a career of expertise. This is my next 10 years. And it's the 10th anniversary of Youpreneur this year. It's kind of crazy. We just figured that out yesterday, like properly talking about it. So I'm not saying my time is up when it comes to sort of that Youpreneur focus and that personal brand business focus. I think I'm always going to be very passionate about helping people in that particular realm. But I do feel very kind of, without being too woo-woo, that's not really my thing. I'll leave that to Tony Robbins. I feel like I'm being called a little bit to kind of share the journey and kind of warts and all, you know what I mean? And sort of saying, you know, you can avoid these things. You can avoid these things. And I think very possibly the next 10 years is probably going to see me doing a lot more keynote speaking. I've done a lot, but I think I can see myself sort of doing a lot more speaking on larger stages. I can also see myself going into corporations and helping them with their senior and middle management teams to kind of create a little bit more of a sustainable kind of culture internally as well. But I will always have my mastermind, my round table mastermind, which are my private clients. And it's interesting actually that over the last kind of couple of years, so I'm wearing a Whoop, you see here.
Yep.
Over the last couple of years, like 70% of the group have all got Whoops. They use my referral link, which means I don't have to pay for Whoop for like 3 years now, which is great. But they are now starting to take their health and their wellness a lot more seriously as well. And just at dinner last night, we were talking about things like red light therapy and regular saunas for detoxification and all that kind of stuff. And we've also seen a dramatic drop on the bill at restaurants as well, because the alcohol consumption has dropped through the floor in the last kind of 12, 18 months as well, which is great. Profit margins are up.
But it's only when you track your health you realize how ridiculous alcohol is, right?
I know, thanks to this bad boy here, this is the best purchase I've ever made in my life. 100%. Forget about all the silly iPods and gadgets. This is the best investment I've ever made. I know if I have one large glass of wine, I can get away with a small one, but one large glass of wine with dinner at around 7 o'clock-ish, I'm going to have a horrifically bad sleep. Yeah. Because when I look at my app the next morning, they make the bloody score red. They make it red so it stands out, you know? You don't want to see red. You want to be in the green if you're a Whoop user, right? So, yeah, it's I see people just, this is going to become more and more prevalent. It's going to become more and more popular, more talked about. It already is. I mean, just in London alone, you've probably seen about 20 biohacking labs opening up in the last couple of years alone. Yeah. So, you know, I think people are catching on that, you know, here's the thing as well. We live in a time where medicine and just like, you know, that health environment in general is moving at such a blistering pace, especially with AI involved now as well, that, you know, maybe if you want to, maybe you could live to 100, actually. Maybe you could, you know? And so I've always said, you know, I'll be happy if I can get into my mid-80s and my head is still right and my body's still strong. You know, I can walk upstairs and things like that without getting winded. I'll be happy at 85 if I can do that. And I genuinely think I can get there now. Yeah, I really do, because of all the things that I'm doing. And I know the stuff that's, you know, around the corner that nobody knows what it is right now. But we know 10 years from now, man, it's going to be a different ball game. health game is going to be a whole different ball game. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. But it does feel like there's a swing, right? Because 10 years ago, hustle culture, like every time I opened my social media feed, I was being told to wake up earlier, go to bed later, hustle every hour.
I think
It's such a flip that's occurred.
Social media in general, and let's not go down this rabbit hole, but social media in general, I believe, is playing a major, major part in how divided we're becoming in different countries around the world. But more importantly, depression is on the rise, anxiety is on the rise, stress is on the rise. You've got people laying in bed at 11 o'clock at night, doom scrolling, I can't go to sleep, I'll just get on my... The blue light's not going to help you go to sleep. That's 5 minutes of looking at your phone in bed is 45 minutes in your brain. That's how long it will last. That blue light stimulation, right?
Yep.
So my wife thought I was mad when I changed our light bulbs in our bedroom to red, like blue light blocking light bulbs. And she was like, you're turning the place into a brothel or something, Yeah, and I was like, no, you wait and see, it's going to be great. And now she used to read in bed for like an hour before she went to sleep. Now she's out in 10 minutes of reading in that environment. She puts the book down and goes to sleep. Yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Right.
Social's brutal, man. Like I just flew back in from the US and I was at the airport and I opened up X for the first time in probably a year and a half. And in 15 minutes of scrolling through it, I saw sexism, I saw racism, I saw violence, I saw pedophilia. There was so much crap. It was so vile and horrible. In 15 minutes, kids at school, high school, beating the crap out of each other, and it's on social media.
It's a Wild West.
It's absolutely mad. I deleted the app. Deleted the app. I can't deal with that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I went through the same. Just purge all social apps.
Yeah.
They're absolutely
totally
toxic. So final thing, and this is a selfish one. You do a lot of speaking on many stages. I'm very early in my speaking career. I've done one. I've got one next week. I've got a couple in the US and Canada later this year.
Congrats.
And I'm in that scary stage of going, oh shit, what if I signed up here? And then your name gets announced and you go, oh no, please don't shit yourself on stage. Get up and get away with it. What advice can you give me who's starting a career of speaking about their passion? Which you're
talking to a speaker, but you're not talking to one of the best speakers I've ever seen, and that's your business partner. You need to have a conversation with Phil about that. Phil is easily one of the best speakers I've ever come across in my career, period, worldwide. The guy is a legend as far as I'm concerned. I'm not just saying that because he's a friend, but he is one of the best speakers ever. Have a chat with him. He'll give you way more tips. For me, the really, really important thing, particularly if it's a brand new talk, and even more so, even if you've done it 20, 30 times, just practice, man. You've got to practice. And the reason why, I'll tell you a quick story. I did a presentation in LA probably about 12 or 13 years or so ago now. And it was the first time I'd ever done this presentation. It was called The Business of You. And it was all about, that was kind of the door opening to the whole Youpreneur thing, right? And I practiced this keynote probably 40 times before I actually did it in full, like performance mode, right? At home with a laptop with a little clicker plugged in, like really practicing. Hotel room before, practicing. And I wasn't nervous. I wasn't particularly nervous to get up on stage or anything like that. But I was aware of the fact that this was content that I had never shared before, and I wanted to come across really well to the audience. And so I practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. Anyway, I get about 10 minutes into the presentation. The screen is right behind me. I'm presenting in front of the screen, and I'm clicking through. No confidence monitor. Okay, this organization were a bit tight on their budget, unfortunately, right? So I know there's about 4 or 5 slides, and I know them really well, and I'm going to whiz through them in the first 10 minutes, and then, kind of carry on. I'm about 10 minutes in, and I'm flicking through the slides, and I've got this all timed, like I practice this so much, like I know that I'm on the money with the clicking and everything. And then I see the faces in the crowd. They start kind of going weird on me. They're kind of looking like this, and they're kind of talking. I'm like, geez, what's going on? Like, is my fly down or something? Like they've noticed, my shoelace is untied or something.
You have shit yourself.
And I have actually shit my pants, right, yeah. But what had happened was, the fonts on my slide deck had not transferred over properly to the event computer. And my slides were all jacked up. They weren't displaying properly. But because I had practiced so much, I had no idea. And I carried on. And one guy actually shouted, "Your slides aren't showing properly, Chris." And I kind of turned around and like half a word was missing and all this kind of stuff. I was like, oh no. And I had that kind of moment of like flustered presentation. I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do kind of thing. But then I was kind of like, you know what? You've got this, man. Like, you've practiced this talk. And I carried on, even with the slides being, I said, you know what? I know what I'm going to say anyway. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Just carry on taking photos and put them up on social because it will be fun. So that's what everybody kept doing, right? And so, but I went through the 45-minute keynote and I kept clicking. Most of them were completely jacked up. Some of them displayed fine. But because I knew my content, I was able to get through without falling flat on my face.
Amazing.
And I still have people come up to me every now and then, actually, when I bump into them at other events and they say, "Remember that time in LA when all your slides?" Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
I love it.
So yeah, practice, man. Practice makes perfect.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. I got some practicing to do.
There you go.
But look, I think we'll leave it there. Like, we're going to have a day of wisdom from you, and
I'm so looking forward to it.
Honestly, it's going to be so.
I'm looking forward to loving on Phil's people. First, please don't take that the wrong way, because I know they're your people as well. But Phil has loved on my people on so many occasions, so it's now time to pay him back for that. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, we'll leave it there, and we'll pick this up further in June.
There you go.
And there we have it. Another episode has come to an end, and I have a quick favour to ask. If you have found this helpful, then who do you know who should listen to this podcast? I strongly believe a rising tide lifts all boats, and right now, private practice needs to stick together to fight these big, gormless groups and these manufacturer-owned Goliaths that are looking to take market share from us. Consider who should be listening, pass on the word about the Business of Hearing podcast, and I'll see you again next week.